Hello, everybody. Welcome to see you both um, to the talk of an open source SOC. So this will be mostly about my personal experience of building SOCs with open source tools. Of course, open source is near and dear to, I think, a lot of people in here. And well, probably or hopefully I can teach you something about the problems I faced or the solutions I've chosen and how it all works. So I want to keep this an open session. So if at any point you feel like you want to ask something, please do. So make it interactive. You came here for knowledge, and I'm trying to share what I can. So just interrupt and ask away. So a little bit about me for starters, just to get an idea from what angle I'm approaching this. Well, I'm flexible, adaptive, creative, you know the things, messing around. MSX was my first PC. So um, soldering the auto fire on joysticks, and then from there on further to hacking, patching all the console systems and doing stuff like that. But anyway, I grew up and started working in as a network and system administrator, doing firewalls, VPNs, stuff like that, designing, maintaining, and that's where I started building also log collection and trying to trigger on certain events, and then realizing that you get a lot of events very quickly if you don't configure that good enough or aggregate not good enough. So from there I started focusing more on security. I went into a security integrator and started working with a lot of customers who had already working systems. They needed extra network or security components, and that's also where I started the pen test department, and well, getting from all sides of angles to customers. I was helping them with making policies, to translating policies into technical measures to implement, and well, a SIEM was most of the time also part of that, and well, then you also are quickly also in a SOC. So that's why I thought I might share here something for you. All right. So when you walk away, I would like you to have an idea of what a SOC is exactly, because well, everybody has an idea for that, and then why it is a problem to have a SOC in a lot of companies, also especially small companies. You know, the budget is a problem. The budget for security is also a problem, and then for a SOC is even more a problem. So then I would like to show you the learnings of my open source journey for some of these things, and then yeah, probably you can help or see how to optimize your awareness for your company, for yourself, or for the SOC itself. So I want you to imagine what a SOC looks like. I think most of you have seen a SOC. Who has never seen a SOC or doesn't know what it is? Right? Okay. So imagine one right now, and most of the people are thinking something like this. So they think a lot of monitors. So if you say, I'm building a SOC, okay, do you have a lot of monitors? Because that's what people want to see. Well, actually, in none of the SOCs that I've built have these large screens, not because they are not handy, but they are handy, but they are also just actually a visual thing. You can easily get this information on one screen or two or three instead of having this huge wall, but it's still a thing. This is what the business thinks a SOC should look like. All right. It's not a system on a chip. Well, it's also a system on a chip. And it grew out of, it actually existed for quite some time, since the 70s. And it grew out of the network operations center. That's what what most people already had in place. And it's dealing with, working very closely with the organization. So what is the organization doing? Oh, we see a new rogue server. Oh, no, that's our new intranet. So you need a lot of communication with what the business is doing. And then there are processes, the way things are done. Can you find the change management system? Can you find changes in your network and relate that? Well, and then you also deal a lot with risks. So you only monitor the things that you think are risky, because otherwise you're monitoring the wrong things. So that's a SOC. You have this SOC in an ecosystem. If you're building a SOC, there might be a lot of things in place already, like a computer emergency response team, because emergencies are likely to get more attention, or they were there before, or maybe you need to add it into your SOC. So there's an overlap of different functions within your organizations. Maybe your incident response team is very capable. You have a good service desk you can integrate into their incidents. When they have an incident, you use the same incident systems, for instance, but it could also be separate. So when you're building a SOC, you have to realize that there are existing components, and some are good and some are not, and you just take the best and maneuver that into your organization. All right, now on to the blueprint, because I will not only focus on an open source SOC, but also an open source small SOC that could be easily run by one guy or two. But this is the basic blueprint. This is the people working in a SOC. And if it's one person, you need to have these functions. So you need to put on different caps and say, okay, I'm going to do management. Management is going to communicate with your stakeholders, identify your stakeholders, and basically build the reports they want to see, build the right KPIs for your progression into getting goals or setting goals even. And the analyst, of course, is doing the classical threat intelligence. It's doing risk assessment. It's doing the monitoring, the identification, and probably even resolving of incidents. The engineer is actually building everything you need to support that. So that could be procedures, that could be tools, that could be communications, relationships, anything that's required for the analyst to do the job, basically. And this is also a representation of what I think, how much time you should spend in each of these tasks. So if you have this and you know I'm one guy in IT, then you can spend this much time on solving incidents, and the rest should be on building systems or designing or improving or getting the communication out to your company. So these are the functions that most SOCs have, and there are more and less parts in that, or you can have additional functions or functions that you don't do. But these are the functions of a SOC basically. So how to do open source all these functions? For instance, risk management. Does anybody have an idea? How do you do that in open source? No? Well, risk management is a kind of tricky, because there's not a lot of tools out there. It's not very common for people to have different risk assessment systems. And apart from that, it's also known that we humans don't estimate risk very well. The more people die of the flu than of coronavirus, right? So So far, yeah, that's right. So how do you do it? Well, you do it basically, you go to the ISO standard, for instance, of risk management. It says pick any method to inventorize your assets and your risks. So basically, you take a spreadsheet in OpenOffice or LibreOffice, whatever, or maybe even Microsoft stuff, and then you brainstorm with experts what could happen with this part of the risk we're looking at. That is really the most easy way of getting the most risk management out of your tools. But if you do need something, there's a tool that you can use. It's called Simple Risk. It's a VM. You can download it. It's a Docker or a web application. Just download it. Don't expect the world of it. Just a classification, basic classification system of high, medium, low, or stuff like that. You can put your risks in, and you can say, I'm going to work on it. There's some residual risk left, or yeah, anything that you can do for managing risks. But don't expect it to be a fully fledged risk management tool for you. You have to do that yourself, and it's an administration tool for you. Right? Is that clear? Right. Vulnerability management. Well, this will be no surprise, I think, to most of us, because we also like to attack, right? So you can manage your vulnerabilities in several different ways. Just take open source tools you're comfortable with, or the team or your organization. If you you need to have something which covers everything, then I should suggest OpenVAS. OpenVAS is also a virtual machine, or you can implement it to build it yourself. Who doesn't know OpenVAS? Okay, well, it basically is the fork of Nessus when it became professional or paid for a lot. And but I must say, if you have a choice of getting OpenVAS or Nessus Professional, I would say this is the one tool that you really need to buy, because OpenVAS does have a little bit of a hiccup. It needs maintenance. You need to work on it, and Nessus has that a lot less. So it's easily worth the money. I think 2,000 euros or so per year. And there is an excellent open source tool provided by a guy. I think he might be here too. And he wrote Succubus. Is er niet? Okay. Oh right, yeah. Well, he's an awesome guy, making this available. What it basically does is, everybody who hasn't done vulnerability scanning yet in there, or management more, I mean to say, because if you scan, you get a report, a list of this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. If you are going to manage that, then it could be 5,000 issues you need to solve. And next week you're going to scan it, it's 5,000 again. So you need to know what changed in this 5,000, because I made 5,000 requests to the team. Please solve it. And next week I'm there. Has anything been solved? So you need to monitor that, and this Succubus does exactly that. It will make a change, a diff of your two scanning moments. All right. Furthermore, for the SIEM, there are tools available for a SIEM. They're not so abundant, I must say, but has anybody worked with Splunk maybe? Yeah, because that's good available. Well, Greylog is actually more or less the same. It's also more or less the same compared to the Elk stack. Does anybody use that? Right, okay. So it's very compatible. It's almost the same. There are a few benefits to having Greylog, because you can have Active Directory integration for your logins. You can have automatic scanning of your Tor exit notice, of anything else bad actors you can have synchronized. And for the rest, it's more or less the same. Still, I do like the Greylog more, just based on my personal experience. Um, well, since it's a blueprint, and SOC is almost synonymous in a lot of talks to SIEM. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more about this one. So, for instance, getting your logs in might be a challenge. So I'm going to briefly give one sample of how that could be done. In this particular case, I've chosen to not have any software installed on the Active Directory controller, which sometimes can happen. So what we do is we make a log collector machine, which has Windows event forwarding. Does anybody use that? Windows event forwarding? Okay, it's basically a subscription model made by Microsoft, and there's a lot of open source documentation on how you can implement this for your network. It basically sends the events logs through to a collector server. Then there could be a lot of software running on your machine which doesn't write to the event log. It creates files. So in this case, you need something to read the files, maintain the status, and check up on the file again, and re-import this data. So this is a sample of how that could be done with DNS and DHCP. And then it will import it into Greylog, and just like Splunk, just like Elk, you can easily search it. All the fields are automatically translated in the right format, so you can search for it. Events log greater than event code this, or smaller than event code that. It differs from commercial SIEMs in that it does not have any pre-built alerts set up for you, but they are not hard to find. For instance, clearing your event log on a Windows machine is a pretty good indicator that there's something wrong or something fishy. So that's just an event number, and in Greylog you say, if this event number happens and it's not a scheduled event or other parameters, then you can generate an alert. Another sample is, for instance, phishing. Phishing, I think a lot of people will agree with me, that's the number one reason companies get hacked, because there's some email, and that's the first entry for most attackers into a company. So how do you go about this? So this is, I think companies should really focus on this more, and to do that you can for instance check the monitor and install a cute little plugin. It's called Microsoft Junk Mail Reporter, and this will create an extra button in your Outlook. People can click on it, and your mail is automatically sent off to Microsoft, which you of course conveniently route to another server, so that you can see who is reporting mails. And then you can make a little summary of that. So here you see that in the middle of the night the attacker starts sending a few mails. Then during the night until 3 o'clock you see mails being sent. It's not much, it's maybe 60 mails, but it's just a sample. And you see also here automatically reply. Some people have that. I'm out of office. You know, that's a bad practice, but it happens. And in the morning you start seeing people coming, and they are clicking this button and seeing, no, this is spam. And you can, from this you can calculate how much people do actually click these buttons. So you have a response versus how much is my spam run estimated. So if this will keep on increasing, then you can take measures. For 60 mails, I don't think you should take any measures at that moment, but it could be a lot worse. And that means that you have to really get to know what your users are doing and how you should respond to that. So that's a good sample of how to do that with Greylog. From Greylog, you can generate alerts, and these alerts, they are in the form of email. So what you do is you make a mailbox, or it could be a mail server where the mails come in. And then you can have an incident response platform that you have to take actions on these alerts, because that's not in Greylog. So for that we use the Hive. Does anybody know the Hive? Yes? All right, very good. So the Hive is basically an incident response platform with capabilities that will help the threat hunter a lot. What you can have the Hive do is watch the mailbox. It will automatically parse all these mails that are coming in and generate alerts from these. You can say, for instance, like the spam run we had, it could be that 200 people said, okay, this is spam, and then you have 200 alerts in the Hive. So you can combine them into one investigation case, and that will be very easy to process the things that happen to it. Because when it processes the mail, it gets the attachment, the link from that was in the mail, if there was any. It will get the host's IP addresses from the header. And all this information you can have as an observable inside the Hive. And if you have an observable, then you can say, okay, I want to right-click this observable and use Cortex, which is a companion software, actually. And it will take this handwork away from you, so you don't have to go individually to VirusTotal, check the IP, check the hash of the attachment, or do anything. You just say, this observable, I would like to run it through any of these. There are, I think, 120 analyzers right now that you can attach to popular APIs of external programs. You can also write your own API. If you have your own inventory database in where you say, okay, this IP address, this is a testing or staging for this application, and this is another company which provides me with this appliance, or this is the contact information for this machine, and you can get this enrichment from Cortex. So this will make your threat hunting and what is actually going on in here very easy. Okay, any questions for the Hive? Or the incident response for that? No, very good. So one thing about sizing, because that was, I think, here. Yeah, not all functions are in every SOC, and not all sizes should have every function. So